give a warm welcome to the hosts of The Bride of Alternate Ending.
I don't have an intro prepared. I'll
Wait, so you're about to start a complicated process without really knowing what you're doing and just diving right on into it? Can't imagine how that could tell us anything interesting about toxic zombies.
I think maybe, I mean, I love to go meta. Maybe that's the intro. Hello, ghouls and or goblins. Welcome to Bride of Alternate Ending. I am your ghost, Tim. Nope, I'm Brennan. It's
you are
hot
Brennan.
over
you
here.
Always have been.
My brain is a fried egg on the pavement. I'm Brennan Klein. The person at the rudder here is Tim Brayton.
Am I at the rudder? Is that what we're doing now?
Well, I am
Because
careening
if I'm at the rudder,
wildly off course.
If I'm at the rudder, we are zooming right towards the seawall. So I need to know these things.
No, okay. I will take the rudder back. I will try to kind of like scoop up the yolk of my brain and kind of mold it back, kind of get those wrinkles back in place, and as we continue this conversation, we talk about horror movies. It's July, which is why it's fucking hot. But 4th of July did happen. It is when America claimed their independence from Great Britain. I don't really.
More like Bad Britain.
Yeah, more like underwhelming.
USA.
Oh my god. Yeah, I am deeply uncommitted to patriotism now more than ever. But I just thought we would stick it to the British by watching some video nasties, movies that were so unrepentantly nasty. Only the most twisted garbage people would watch them, and if kids watched them, they would instantly get tattoos and smoke cigarettes and throw their nans out the window. It's the video nasties.
We need to record more often when it's hot. I'm enjoying this.
Thank you.
But yeah, so the theme of the month is basically say screw you to England, as is our national pastime. And I feel like we picked an exceptionally appropriate subject for that game this time around. We are talking about the 1980 film question mark. It is probably best known as Toxic Zombies.
That is the title by which it was found by me on Tubi.
Same, and the print I watched, which was very obviously a VHS rip,
for sure,
said the word Toxic Zombies on it.
It did say it at this weird little title card at the beginning that could have very easily been clipped in.
Sure. The one I watched, I think, was... So I did not watch it on Tubi. I watched it on the Internet Archive. And the title cards were so nondescript that I don't think you'd be able to tell whether they had been clipped in or not.
The version I was watching on Tubi, the title card was so blurry it was barely legible. And I was
like we might have watched the same print.
Oh yeah, maybe we did. But I thought it might have been like an effect that was going to resolve, and it was not. Reader, no, it was not.
It was not. But so Toxic Zombies is probably the title you'll find it under. It may have initially been released under the title BLOODEATERS, one word.
Much worse title.
Much worse title. I could not figure out whether it was ever actually released under the title BLOODEATERS, or if that was just what they were calling it when they were shooting it, or what that's about. And neither of those is the title you're going to see if you're looking at the list of video nasties prepared by the Director of Public Prosecutions in Great Britain. For in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, this was known as Forest of Fear.
Also a worse title.
Also a worse title. No, Toxic Zombies, pretty clearly the winner here. So I think, in this case at least, history has done its job and brought the cream to the top.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, Toxic Zombies, while actually being the most lurid and the most accurate title of the three, it sells a bill of goods that the movie cannot.
This is true. Not that any of the titles necessarily would, but Toxic Zombies does inaccurately imply at least two things about this film. One is that there will be toxicity, and one is that there will be zombies.
I mean, I think there's like a dash of both. But it is,
Toxic is fully justified. Toxic is fully justified.
yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about this movie. It was, written, directed, stars, I think also produced by Charles McCran, who, as legend will have it, was in law school at the time and just kind of was doing this for kicks.
I mean, that certainly seems borne out. But yeah, this appears to be like the summer off of Yale law. Hey guys, let's make a movie. And given that McCran never had anything else to do in movies and was involved in like corporate business, sure, but it makes as much sense as anything.
Yeah, and not to bring the mood down, but since we're talking about him, he did die in the 9/11 attacks. He worked in the World Trade Center.
Yeah, he was apparently working on the specific floor that got the most plain.
Yeah,
at the start of the attack.
So that was a weird thing to discover midway through watching the movie during one of the many Tubi ad breaks, and I was just like, oh, I don't really know what to do with this information, and now everybody can have it and not know what to do with it.
Because it's not germane, except that it's sad. But I mean, being sad doesn't make it germane. It is one of my chief pieces of evidence for. So he did seem to actually care more about finance and business than movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was working. It's easy to forget, but the World Trade Center was, after all, a banking building, basically, and that's where he was working.
Yeah, no, he was, and that's what happened. I do think that in honor of him, a New York-based television network played Toxic Zombies a couple times.
Just imagine it being the failing hours of 9/11, and you're looking for anything that will comfort you in possibly the most confusing and chaotic day in America's history, and up comes a picture of McCran's face with, his birth and death dates on it, followed by Toxic Zombies.
I don't know a better way to pay tribute to such a man.
Do you feel grounded and comforted by Toxic Zombies on 9/11/2001?
You know what? I'm gonna hazard a guess and say probably not.
See, I'm going to suggest it's a sign of America returning to what America does best, which is being tasteless and gaudy.
Yeah, I mean,
And
this was the weekend.
It feels like getting back on your feet a little bit.
Yeah, and this was the weekend that Mariah Carey's Glitter premiered. So I think that could have been an excellent double feature.
I think it would have been. Two people who just don't know the first thing about making movies going out and doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Toxic Zombies. It's about...
I call not it on plot synopsis.
Okay. You touched your nose. Uh-oh. Okay, so there is a group of really annoying pot farmers who have the same conversation over and over and over again about when they should leave because they have been scoped out by the feds.
Here's what I will say about the pot farmers. The movie is often called the start of the redneck zombies subgenre. The story is very much about, damn those federal regulators getting in the way of our ability to just grow our cash crop with all their regulations and all their rules. So it has a certain level of like Appalachian anarchists trying to get by. The pot farmers are all so obviously his Yale law buddies because they all talk in like these very like I've never known even the hint of privation like accents, and like they all seem to be wearing like turtlenecks and shit or polos. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, that is something we will come across repeatedly, which is people who are cast clearly because Charles McCran knows them and not because they are right for the role. And I mean, right, just in terms of look, because no one is a good actor in this movie, really.
But like these don't look like people who know how to farm pot.
No, they just really don't. Also, I guess it's worth saying this movie was filmed in Pennsylvania. It has the slightest sheen of that George Romero low budget indie Pennsylvania charm, to the point that Martin from Martin plays a role in the movie. They got him.
They got him. And I mean, I will say this: McCran obviously likes horror movies. I think that at least feels like I get it. Because, again, you go out, you make a zombie movie in George Romero's own backyard. Like, that's not an accident. You've done that because you like Night of the Living Dead.
Yes. And there are a couple shots that feel like they are very much trying to evoke Night of the Living Dead. We're getting a zombie arm, like, punching through a window. We're getting, like, a little bit of a car tootling past, like, a kind of rolling hill. Like, there's little bits that do feel like he is paying homage in some way. But yeah, so we've got these weed farmers. We follow 2 federal agents, but we don't know who they are at first. We think they're hunters, or we don't think about them at all because they're boring and don't really do anything for a while. But we follow them driving into the woods, wandering through the woods with shotguns. We do start cutting back and forth with a topless woman taking a shower in a bucket, which is the first and really only like exploitation of that kind in the movie.
It's definitely prepped me for a movie that was going to have a very different relationship to cinema.
Yes, very much. But anyway, she gets shot through the throat that was kind of neat.
That was maybe so that also prepped me for a different movie, because that was maybe the best gore effect in the film, or at least the one that I was expecting the least.
Yeah, it's so good they used it again later.
This acts 100%.
But yeah, so it turns out these are federal agents. They then get murdered by 2 of the yuppie weed farmers. And basically this starts a back and forth, if you will, between the feds and the weed farmers. The feds decide to send out an experimental chemical agent called Dromax that is an herbicide that will kill the crop. They hire a horribly rednecky, abusive, drunkard, stereotype character crop duster to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And Dromax has not been approved, and probably like 85%, all but 2 of the remaining farmers get sprayed with a considerable quantity of Dromax while trying to harvest the crop. This after some illness transforms them into toxic zombies.
I mean, what else are you gonna call it?
Yeah, they're maybe undead. One of them certainly seems to have died and then come back specifically. But they're definitely brainless. I wouldn't say blood eaters.
No, they are flesh eaters.
Yeah,
they are flesh eaters. But no, it's difficult to say. What do we have here? Do we have like Night of the Living Dead zombies? Do we have Crazies-esque, just the chemical made us insane? Do we have a sort of 28 Days Later situation? It's the chemicals made them cannibals and maybe made them dead.
Yeah, which is totally fine, but it is not a. I mean, by this point, the idea of what a zombie movie has been presented to us by George Romero many times over, and it had been more established by 1980. So it's interesting that this one does seem to be either through ineptitude or by choice kind of eschewing a lot of the rules of what a zombie movie would have been around this time. Like, this is not if you get bitten by these zombies, they're not passing along the virus or the curse or the contaminant. Mm-hmm. So it is just the like 7 people who were exposed to Dromax / the federal government who are the antagonists here. Yeah, so it's a pretty small crop of zombies. They do mow their way through the astoundingly populous abandoned woods.
Right. It is very much a movie, and this is where the plot summary just I couldn't even. It's a movie that just keeps kind of serving up groups, and we don't really know who they are. We don't really know why they're there. We just know that it's been 5 minutes since the last zombie attack, and by God, we don't want to get bored, so here you go.
Yeah, no, there are so many people in this patch of woods that is repeatedly referred to as like uninhabited, abandoned, like totally middle of nowhere. Ultimately, what kind of coalesces is that there is a guy who works for the federal government, but is not part of the chain of command that has decided to pull this Dromax stunt. He, in fact, has been warned away.
And he's exciting because he is the only person whose name I picked up, and the only person, therefore, who I am confident that I know who the actor was.
And the actor is Charles McCran, the director.
And how?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, his name is Tom, right?
His name is Tom Cole.
Ooh. He is warned away by a telex that says, "Oh, there's flooding in the area," and he's like, "No, there's not. I'm still gonna go fishing there with my brother and my shrill harpy of a wife."
Mm-hmm.
What a horrid character to have to spend so much of the movie with.
Mm-hmm.
She is like, I mean, R.I.P. Shelley Duvall. But she's like, if she couldn't have been copying Wendy's voice from The Shining, but it seems like she's trying to do that, but also combining it with a baby who is crying at the same time.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like, because Shelley Duvall gives a terrific performance in The Shining as Wendy, but I think if Wendy was just like constantly complaining and had sucked on helium, we'd kind of get halfway to what this performance is. It is just unimaginably brutal. And yeah.
And I gotta wonder, is this McCran's girlfriend at the time or something? Like, what's happening there? Because like, she is awful, but I don't think she's supposed to be.
No, there's this really, I mean, the most unsettling part of the movie is their foreplay before they have sex. So they're basically having this conversation where she's like, I think I want to go to the woods this time. And he's like, well, I invited you last time and you didn't want to go. He basically reveals that he only invited her because he knew she'd say no. And she's like, I could handle the woods.
This is also the scene, if I recall correctly, where we meet this character. So this is our first impression of this character.
Definitely our first impression. And then she's like, what? You didn't want me around? I'm like, well, I don't. And so she's like, I'm leaving. And she gets up because they're just sitting on the floor. Are they watching TV? Are they doing anything? Or are they just sitting on the floor?
Oh, man. Don't ask me to start parsing the blocking of this movie. It's hard for me to parse the narrative.
Anyway, so he like grabs her. He does a real good grab and rips her sleeve. And she's like, Tom, my sleeve. And then
they just Foley in these crazy ass loud ripping noises as they start like ripping the clothes off as flirtation, and it's fucking stupid. But keep going.
Well, because she like retaliates by just ripping open his button down in a way that does not damage the shirt at all. And he just like tears her blouse off of her. It's very Neanderthal. It's very, and I'm just like, this is not the couple I need to be seeing doing this. But yeah, it was just very alarming to see. I don't know. Anyway, she's one of the most irritating characters I've seen on screen in a very, very long time. Anyway, basically, we are introducing groups. We winnow them down a little bit. The people who are we're following through most of the movie are Tom and his girlfriend, who I think is named Polly or Sally, something with a Lee at the end.
The IMDb calls it Polly.
Okay.
And also implies that they are married, although I don't know if I got that.
Wait. Oh, I think they are. They're totally married, because there was like kind of your wife's on line one, that kind of...
Oh, right.
That kind of interaction with the secretary, I think. Yeah, okay, so they're married. He brings her out to the woods. He brings along the brother, but the brother gets dispatched really quickly by the zombies.
Yes.
He's also irritating, so at least we got one of them down. And there's also a family who's camping in the woods. The dad is wearing the tiniest little yellow boater hat you've ever seen. The parents die quickly, but the children are left to wander.
Yeah,
the
the
woods.
children who are a sister and a developmentally disabled brother, and I am pretty sure the characters are younger than the actors by maybe a lot.
Oh, for sure. So the little girl who is probably, I would say, meant to be 12 or 13. She's wearing like a little girl wig, but she looks like an Amy Sedaris character. It
Yes.
it looks wrong. It's like those scenes in Aline where the lady was like CGIing her face into like a younger like Celine Dion body. It's really unsettling.
Yeah, no, it's very very bizarre because I mean the plot hinges on how did these two kids manage to like survive until Tom and his awful wife find them. But it also feels like two 20-year-olds just kind of racing around in the woods, and it's like this doesn't seem like there's actually that much danger there. It's film breaking is basically
Yes.
the point. Like it's such a bad piece of casting that it gets in the way of whatever the hell the movie is trying to do, which again, whatever the hell the movie is trying to do is something you're doing a better job of than I would, for the record.
Oh, thank
I
you
would
so
not
much.
I would not have gotten this remotely this far into a coherent plot synopsis.
Well, that's about as far as I can get, I think. But so yeah,
Well,
no.
I can do you one more though, is that the kids and the Coles meet up to form a kind of like ad hoc family group, right?
Of course.
Because that's what happens, and then they band together to stop, not only to escape the zombies but also expose the feds.
Yes. And eventually the two feds who made the decision to drop the Dromax do arrive to try and shut down Tom Cole from telling anybody about what he knows. And again,
Which is-
so yeah.
Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Well, I just think, speaking about the casting, like I think everyone in this movie should have been 20, because the 20-year-olds playing children, deeply wrong. But there's also a 20-year-old playing a federal agent.
Okay, that's exactly the point I was going to bring up. I think actually of all the casting, as bad as the wife is, the like little boy playing a very serious federal bureaucrat, and like we're like 8 minutes from the end. I just want the movie to wrap up at this point, and then all of a sudden this happens, and it's just, I didn't know if I had those 8 minutes in me.
No, it's yeah.
he's by far the youngest seeming member of this whole cast. By
Very,
far.
very much. He must have been a freshman at Yale or whatever they were doing, or someone's little brother. I don't know, but he looks like he's wearing his dad's suit. You know, like
He's got his dad's suit. He's got like this like swoopy, trying to make it look like a business haircut situation going on.
yeah. I think
It doesn't sound like his balls have dropped when he talks.
I mean, I kind of believed it as a like maybe he's like a nepo baby fail son kind of thing, where it's like he got this job because his dad's in the department.
I mean, as a commentary on the immaturity and fecklessness of our terrible government and its exploitation of its citizenry, he feels like if the theme here is our government is being run by high schoolers, then sure it is, but I don't think that was at all the intent.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no, it's just everyone is wrong. And it is an uncanny kind of weird thing. It does not service the atmosphere of the movie because it does not have such a thing. It's not like, oh, dreamlike. It's just like, oh, it's
still
just wrong.
It's still weird, even though this movie doesn't have an atmosphere, doesn't have a tone, doesn't have anything established. And again, we're running into the end at this point. The guy, the kid that we're talking about, can still somehow puncture whatever it was that the movie had. That up until that moment, I would not have said there was such a thing to puncture, and yet he shows up and it's like, oh, the movie just lost me. I didn't know the movie had me, but it just lost me.
And yeah, so that's kind of I think that's enough of the plot. That is the major players.
I mean, it's again, it's cannibals in the woods attacking people. Pot.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean, I always just, this is my go-to reference for this, but it has that Friday the 13th Part 5 structure, where it's like we're just gonna toss a bunch of new people in and mow them down with zombies and see what happens.
And really, this invented that structure. So who's to say that the creators of Friday the 13th Part 5 weren't watching this film?
Invented is such a strong word. I don't remember. I've used this comparison before recently. I don't remember for what movie. Maybe it was earlier. I hope it was. So
what I'm trying to remember what it was because you did. I don't remember. But I mean, point being, yeah. This movie,
I think it was our other nasty, the Driller Killer, probably.
Oh, could be.
Which was even earlier.
It sure was.
Yeah, sorry. Were you saying something?
No, just that. I mean, we're talking about this movie like it has a story. It doesn't. It has kill scenes. And sometimes
it barely
those
has
kill scenes,
that.
It barely has that. But like sometimes it has the Coles and the kids as a like. In theory, it's a counterpoint. In theory, we're rooting for them. In theory, like it's going to build towards something. But it is a clear sign of the difference between theory and practice, shall we say?
Oh boy, I have thoughts about the ending of this movie that I think we'll hold off a little bit. But okay, so yeah, there's a bunch of people dying. Let's talk about it. How are we feeling about the gore, the kills in general, how they are staged? Any immediate thoughts?
I will say, to stop bagging on this movie, that I think I actually did enjoy more than you did. McCran is excited to be making this movie. I don't know if his many friends and fellow students that he has roped into going on this journey are excited as well. But he's excited. And I think you can feel that in the gore scenes where there is a level of what can we do on no budget that would be super gross, right? Like that seems to be the animating principle here. It's not what's going to necessarily be realistic. It's not going to be like what's going to establish the threat of these zombies. It's just going to be what would make everyone go ew in the theater. And I think some of the effects land there. We talked about the shot in the throat, which I thought worked really well. There's also a guy who gets his hand, I think, ripped off by the zombies.
Yes.
And then he raises his stump right into the camera, and you can actually sort of see the actor like working the pump on his prosthetic arm to like make blood like shoot up out of the stump. But it is gross, and it's in a nice tight close-up, so we're really just being begged to look at that prosthetic stump, which doesn't look real, but it does look like ew. And, I feel like that's, the principle here.
And that is a very fun effect.
It's a fun effect. And I think that's where I'd be sort of like, the effects are often, not always, the effects are often fun.
Yeah, I don't know that there was enough of them to keep up my interest in the movie. But there's definitely some good moments. There's a part where there's like these really bad slashed up bodies that we see at a certain point. Their wounds are just like kind of painted on with tempera paint or whatever. Mm-hmm. But there are flies on the wounds, and that I thought was a really cool touch.
Yes, I like that moment.
But yeah, as far as the thing that I felt like, if the video nasty people even watched this movie at all before prosecuting it, rather than just looking at the poster and the title and the premise, I think the thing that would have gotten them there is the scene where the alleged little girl axe murders a federal agent.
Sure. I do believe the nasties list came down really, really hard on any film that had any quantity of cannibalism. I think that's probably what actually did it. And again, you watch this movie, I think you'd have to be the most prim, fainting couch Victorian lady imaginable to see any of what happens in this film and feel like it is significantly likely to degrade the morals of the people who are watching it. Like, yeah, it is at best it looks neat but super fake, and at worst it just looks super fake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it just, I mean, look, we've seen so many horror movies. If this is your first horror movie, maybe you'd be so scandalized. Oh, there is one effective moment. It's not a gore moment. It's just an implication moment. But the first zombie that we see, which is the crop duster guy who gets covered in this in Dromex, he is attacking his wife, and in the process, his zombie hand knocks a glass bottle off of the counter, and then he starts stepping on the broken glass because he is no longer alive and has no feeling, or no longer has feeling or thoughts.
Right,
or
whatever the reason is. Yes.
Yeah, and that I think is an effectively eerie moment.
That scene is probably the closest I think anything came to working. In part because it's one of the scenes where he's just like flat out ripping off Romero. But
yeah, it felt so. It's so that setup of the stairs is so like the garden trowel sequence.
It's so the garden trowel sequence, but it offers an interesting contrast. So the scene where the crop duster is fighting with his wife before he goes a crop dusting is horrible. It's unwatchably bad. Both of the actors involved feel like they're auditioning for some sort of like reboot of Hee Haw. Like the accents are all over the place. It's tasteless. It's mean spirited. It's just insanely cartoony and bad. But the next time we see the two of them, and it's really the only two scenes in the movie we see either of these characters. I don't think we see really the crop duster outside of these two scenes. That contrast where now he's just kind of like shuffling and staring and not speaking while the wife is still kind of squawking in this horrible cartoon hen voice, does get to something uncanny in a way that I thought was working. And they also did a weird but I think effective thing. They painted the crop duster in like yellow body paint. So he's kind of like marigold colored throughout this scene, which is a weird color for a zombie movie, but I think really effectively just kind of it gets to that toxic, right? The quality in the title there.
Yeah.
Like he looks like his body is rotten, like a bad piece of fruit. And so that combined with his like weird incongruous silence actually worked on me. I think that is the scene for me that actually worked and not worked with an asterisk.
Yeah. No, I'm totally inclined to agree. I put that under the good column in my notes. I think there's another scene that has a concept that I think would be effective, but the execution just really isn't there. Well, first of all, it's such a laborious chase where this woman is running through the woods and is trying to like chase after this truck that's driving away. And it takes forever, but eventually she gets in the truck, the driver dies, she's trying to drive away, and she gets killed. There's a part where her corpse is hanging limply in the front seat while the car is in neutral and just kind of drifts backward, and I thought that was a neat idea, but not that interesting to watch in execution.
That's the problem with it. It's better on paper than in execution, to such a degree that until you started describing it, I had forgotten that scene.
Yeah. And it's I believe that character is the mother of the two children, but it's just one of the many dead meat characters that you don't really spend much time with at all, so it is very forgettable.
Yeah, no, I had an extraordinarily hard time keeping any characters. The crop duster and his wife are easy because they're just horrible.
Yeah, they're kind of like that couple at the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 3. I think they're like Harold and Ethel or whatever their names are. He's like hanging up all the stuff at the convenience store that they run.
Yeah, that is a very good point of comparison. But like they're easy to remember. Tom is easy to remember because he's the only character who is being well directed in this whole movie, if you follow my meaning.
Yeah.
And
that he's masturbating.
And in that, like, the only person who knew what was going on in the director's head turns out to have been the director. And therefore it's easy to keep track of his wife because she's usually near or with him.
And screaming at the top of her lungs.
Right, and then the kids are the kids. So, like, that's, like, the list of 6 characters that I am confidently able to distinguish throughout this movie.
Yeah, I would say I did not really have any trouble distinguishing characters, but that's because they mainly get introduced in those clumps, and then they die, and then you get to forget about them.
And that's a good point. You don't have to keep track of who's who.
Yeah, so I didn't have that issue, but it's also a thing where it's like, why bother trying to figure out who each person is? It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
There were two, I think there were two babyface federal employees that I did get mixed up potentially. So I'm not totally sure. I did have my own issues. Because there's the guy that you were talking about at the end, or who shows up in the forest in the last 8 minutes. But then there's a guy at the very end who's also a federal guy who's way too young, and I was like, wait, did he survive, or it's just a different guy? I think it's just a different guy.
I think it's a different guy. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
A, badly written. B, badly directed. C, the print I watched at least was beat up.
Ooh, yeah, rough.
Very, very difficult to extract visual details from this print. So maybe it's a brilliant movie and it's just the print's fault. I don't know.
It's not. I mean, yeah, it could be, truly gorgeous, but it is woof woof. Also, nobody can drink from a stream in a way that looks like a human being is drinking from a stream. I don't understand. They're so panicked. They're just like, just rapidly, like, just slamming their hand back and forth from the water to their mouth in a way that could not possibly be effective.
Well, again, if you're someone who has never experienced roughing it any more than, like, the lower quality Ivy League schools, then, like, yeah, you would not have any idea what to do when you're actually in a forest. And I think that's true of a lot of this cast.
Oh boy!
Again, these are Yale students. Like, these are not people who have ever camped.
No. No. But yeah, I mean, it's just really boring, is the thing.
It's super boring. Sometimes, and this is not intended to be praise, but I think it's going to sound even less like praise than I mean for it to be.
Okay.
It is sometimes annoying enough that it can't be boring because it's too shrill.
Yeah, like, you're not bored when you're seeing the crop duster and his wife, etc. But, like, when the zombies are wreaking havoc, when it's not a cool special effect, there is not a lot there.
No, the zombie scenes are such bad reheated Romero, done in by the director just really not having a good visual sense. Like, and this is why I said, please don't make me try to parse the blocking. This is not a movie, sometimes we say, well, the movie's rough, but he's got a good eye. This is not a movie made by somebody who has a good eye. This is a movie where I am struggling to figure out what I'm looking at and why a lot.
Yeah, it's just and it's just a lot of people with oatmeal on their face lumbering around the woods. It's just not interesting. And then every time we cut to the weed people before they get zombified, it's just the guy talking about when they're gonna break camp. And there's so many scenes of Polly in the car shrieking for Tom while a zombie slams on the window. Like, that happens at least twice in two separate locations. And it just has nothing to offer on the script level. It has that kind of, like, basic idea about the government being bad. But beyond that...
it's very... Yeah.
Yeah, at least on a line-by-line basis, it is pretty useless.
It's pretty useless. And it's like, it's difficult even to tell what the stakes are. Because it's like, what is the geographic spread of these toxic zombies? We know there are only a handful of them. So are they just, like, walking around the woods in a spiral, killing everyone they come across? Are they in some capacity chasing Tom? Like... Yeah. Like, what... Why are they scary, basically? Like, if we leave the toxic zombies alone... Do they just hunker down in their pot field growling at each other and then die of a starvation in 2 days? Like,
yeah, who knows? And yeah, like you said, like saying, like, the movie doesn't really even establish them as, like, anything or a credible threat or, like, the big thing. And
well, I think that's the one thing it loses from, like, you mentioned these are not zombies who, if they bite you, you turn into a zombie. No, that's not the thing. So there's not a plague metaphor, which is, like, kind of the thrust of every zombie movie. So there's this sense of like they're not going to sweep over the landscape if we can't stop them or we can't escape and tell the people what's going on.
And they're not really indestructible killers. You can shoot them and they die.
It just feels like here's this like cluster of awful yuppie libertarians. Why don't we just leave them alone? Because who wants to even bother with them in life, let alone in death?
Yeah, and the movie almost seems to agree, because once all the zombies are destroyed, it just kind of keeps going till it hits 87 minutes. It just goes.
Well, it has to get that anti-government regulation theme pinned down.
It did have to follow up on him asking for a new work car. We really had to...
The scene...
Sorry, go ahead.
The scene where he... Can we talk about the end?
We're pulling back the spoiler veil, everyone.
Insofar as one can spoil this, the big bad government guy, who again seems to be like maybe not an 18-year-old, maybe like a 21-year-old in this case, wants to buy Tom Cole's silence, or maybe it's that he was so impressed by Tom Cole's level head, he wants Tom Cole to like be on his bad guy side. It's really, really not clear.
No, not at all.
But whatever he's trying to buy from Tom Cole, he's going to do it with a fancy new car. And the scene where Cole like manfully refuses to be bought off so cheaply, he's like, I don't want your car, and I'm gonna get out of this horrible government conspiracy to make toxic zombies. It's such a like passionate Sorkin-esque monologue that McCran has written for himself, and he delivers it in this like stern, square-chested way, and it's so frivolous. Like the content of the scene isn't there. Like there's nothing that the scene is about, but he's treating it like it's this like big defiant, fuck you government, you did Vietnam. It's like sort of like statement of solidarity with the hippies or whatever, and it's blithering nonsense.
Oh, for sure. It's so silly, but also again, the movie keeps going. It just doesn't stop. But yeah, no, it is very, hero with the heart of gold, director writing himself as like this super like, macho American hero. But that's followed by a really weird moment where he kisses his secretary goodbye on the lips. And then goes on a road trip to, if I understood his dialogue correctly, where he's going to go visit the surviving children with their grandparents for 2 months.
Yeah. He makes it very clear that it's going to be 2 months.
Yeah, that's a lot of time to spend with these kids that you don't actually know.
Because, well, there's this weird thing that it's like now his responsibility is these children. And is it? Like,
no,
is
it's not. And they have guardians who are members of their family. He has nothing to do. But also, I mean, tragically, Polly was killed in the attack. So
well, that's why he's got to kiss the secretary. He's got to move on.
Yeah, he's got to move on.
Can't live in the past.
He's got to sexually harass his employees. This was, probably the late 70s when we were shooting this. But then he goes to a gas station. They have a whole conversation about how the pressure of his tires is doing. He kind of sort of...
Oh, God, that's right. I forgot about the car tire scene.
And he kind of like...
And it's like, if you inflate them much more than that, it's going to ride hard.
And he's like, oh, I need a nice, smooth ride. And I think that's like, yeah, we've made it. We survived. But he also like sort of has a flashback via a picture, like a mural of a waterfall.
Oh, that's right. And that's like the second to last shot is the mural he's staring at. And it holds on it and it zooms in and just hangs there. And it doesn't look like anything else in this movie. So like, what was that?
I think it's the same style of painting I think we see that painting earlier, maybe in his office or something. So maybe it's meant to be the area or like nature or whatever.
Maybe it's the forest of fear.
Ooh, perhaps.
That lives in all of our souls.
Oh, absolutely. Inside of you, there are 2 waterfalls. But yeah, no, it does nothing. It doesn't give us any further insight into his character. It gives us a lot of insight into how his car is running. So that is nice. And this is not the new car, mind you. He turned that down.
Oh, he absolutely did, because he's a man of honor.
Yeah. But I was like, is a toxic zombie going to pop out? Or is he going to start coughing and turning gray? Or like, why are we watching this scene?
But it's so I just rewatched The Terminator not that long ago, and it's very much the scene at the end of that movie where Linda Hamilton is just like, the time has now come to drive into the frontier and toughen myself up and be ready for the menace that is to come. And that's like the vibe here is like, he's gonna drive off. He's gonna wander the earth now and spread the truth about the toxic zombies. But it's like, are you? Is that the stakes here? Like, why are you? It's just this weird kind of like, and then he entered into myth, sort of like final shot and final beat.
Yeah, he's gonna couch surf with the children of strangers. Is what's going on.
This is the thing, and these are the stakes. Like, we're talking about his tire pressure. We're talking about how he's taking 2 months off work, but it's also kind of being shot with this like the birth of a legendary American hero thing.
You're right. Yeah. It like as he pulls away, there should be a voiceover, where it's like, and I never saw him again. But they say anytime you need him, just call his name and you will be saved from the toxic zombies. You know, like just scream Tom out of an open car window like Polly did, and he will come get you.
Yes.
Well, that's fucking toxic zombies. Yeah, is there anything we have not covered?
I mean, no. It's a sincere movie. I like sincere movies.
Yeah, you are watching those Kevin Costner pictures.
I did that. But yeah, I kind of like the cadence of the bad acting in this movie, which is severe. The acting here is just a sight. It's awful. But it's like, let's go for it and have fun kind of bad acting, which at least is, again, parts of this movie aren't boring.
Yeah.
Parts of this movie are. Parts of this movie are desperately boring, but parts of it are not, and that does feel like an achievement to me.
Yeah, and look, I was actually, my score of 1.5 stars was actually a kindness to the movie, because I was feeling a 1-star level of boredom by the end. I was just excruciated. The Tubi commercials didn't help. That's not the movie's fault. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, this simply isn't a 1-star movie. Like, that applies a level of ire that is not peaked by toxic zombies. Like, there is, I don't really find a lot of glee or joy or sincerity that is pinging against my heart in this, but it does have a certain amount of just kind of that shoddy charm, where you're just like, okay, fine. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody.
No, the only reason to watch this movie, the 100% only reason to watch this movie is if you're checking off Video Nasties.
Yeah, which we both are. This was the first time watch for both of us. I'm glad that we got to do this for us, for history. But yikes, I don't know that I'm going to be champing at the bit to kind of dive into any of the other unseen Video Nasties.
Oh, no. I mean,
being.
there's like 5 of them that are good. Out of the entire list of 72, so few of the movies are worth watching.
No, they're so lucky that they were also afraid of, like, Tenebrae and The Evil Dead and The Burning, because otherwise this would be, like, the most useless list of movies ever compiled.
Right. But that does get us to the question, and I think it needs to be contemplated. How nasty did you think this movie was?
Almost no nasty. I was kind of expecting, I was like, okay, it's a Video Nasty zombie movie. I was expecting something that was going to be like an even lower budget kind of Fulci, phantasmagoria, like just like really going for it. Even like there is a Bigfoot movie from the same year called Night of the Demon.
Ah, yes.
Yes, I was expecting something like kind of on that level where like Bigfoot's ripping people's dicks off and like causing two Girl Scouts to
Great.
stab each other with their pocket knives.
The scene where Bigfoot rips a dick off is one of the great achievements of cinema.
It really is.
That is a movie that I'm glad the Video Nasties list brought to me.
Yes. I was kind of expecting to be on that level, and this was just not. It didn't hit it.
It's not. And to be clear, I think that Night of the Demon is horrible.
It is.
But this is not as horrible as that. It's also not as anything as that.
It's not as lurid for sure. Like
it's not the least nasty film I've seen from the Video Nasties list, but it's pretty benign.
Yeah. Like I said, I was really racking my brains to figure out.
There again, I think it's the cannibal thing. There is one
Yeah.
scene early when the zombies have just begun zombifying, but I don't think they're fully there yet. Like they're still using language, where one of them is just going to town on a piece of raw meat, and I'm pretty sure it's just like animal meat. Like I don't think it's meant to be a human body yet, but it's gross.
Yeah.
I didn't like watching him go to town on that piece of meat. And again, I think it's just that the DPP had such a hair trigger about cannibal movies, and this is ultimately a cannibal movie. It's kind of.
Yeah, sure. What? Sure. Okay. Like, who are we to question the shock and horror of of that particular commission? Anyway, Toxic Zombies, everyone. We watched it.
We sure did. And you can too. Like I said, it's on the Internet Archive in a print that looks like it got run over by a pickup truck. So run right out and check it out.
Yeah. Run, don't walk, away from Toxic Zombies. But yes, that's going to do it for this particular movie and for Video Nasties month. Next month, you know what? I will tell you what we're going to do next month in just one moment, because you can find more episodes of this show, the other show, reviews, all kinds of other things at alternateending.com.
You may find other reviews. You may find the other show. Let's not make promises we can't keep.
Yeah, exactly. You can find old episodes and old versions of all those things at alternateending.com. I do have a review of Hallmark's Sense and Sensibility that I promised about 4 months ago that I think I might get to in the next week.
I have at this point a backlog of like 8 reviews I plan on writing any day now. Couple Kevin Costner epics. Some contemporary 2024 popcorn movies, and one day I will write those reviews.
I really can't wait. Look for that. Anyway, next month, in August, I will be turning 30. So in honor of me entering my dotage, we will be covering hagsploitation movies. The genre more or less invented by whatever happened to Baby Jane, right? Like at least was a response to.
I am unaware of there being an earlier example of the specific form where it's not just like there's a creepy old lady, but like it's specifically let's wallow in the fact that actresses age.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. We're gonna do a bit of that. I think we might. I mean, I don't know. Well, check. Look for the poll on Patreon, so you can, if you are part of the Patreon, you can choose the first movie we cover that month. But yeah, I'm excited. We have not compiled the full list yet of nominees, and I'm excited to chew on that a little bit. But yes, that's what we'll be covering next. And until then, goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.